You're a cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat. You're poison. You're trouble. You're bad news.
Ignorance.
You little bitch troll from hell.
Here's an amazing act. Here's a tremendous
A flatfoot.
act. I'm not an expert.
Riveting.
The heat.
Startling act. The amazing, the thrilling, the greatest,
The fuzz.
spectacular.
Uncomfortable and smelly is
Poison. You're trouble. You're
physically repulsive.
bad news.
Incredible, exciting.
Unsettling and riveting.
John Law.
Welcome back,
Bizarre.
everybody. This is your Uncle Eddie. Welcome to Uncle Eddie TV. This is episode number 600 or 700. Pick your number if you wish. We're back at the AOC studios, and today, once again, I'm in the studio with my friend, energy expert. I'm going to call you an energy expert.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Energy bank of information. My friend Simon Mahan. Welcome back, Simon.
Thanks, Ed.
And thanks for coming in today. I think we're going to start off today's conversation with you're going to enlighten me. The role that I play in the Uncle Eddie TV show, as most of you who've ever seen it, I'm the dumb guy, and I interview people who know stuff. I'm not here to be adversarial.
Sure.
My questions are naive, and I'm trying to ask a question that a person like me needs to know.
Absolutely.
And since it's about solar, let's go straight up. Those things on my roof, that's solar, but that's not all.
That's right. Yeah, so solar energy is much bigger nowadays. There's a number of different types of technology you can use, but what most people think about are the panels that go on your roof. Yes, that's right.
Okay, and those panels on my roof, that's what we think of, but is that the most efficient, or is that what we should think of? Or
Oh, that's a good
let's go
question.
globally. As a country
Yeah.
that is getting away from coal and more the old school, what is the most efficient way for us to go relative to solar power as a country, not as a homeowner, but
Right.
as a country? What do we do?
That is a really great question, because a lot of folks automatically go to, I need to put all these solar panels on the top of my roof, and that's really the only way to do it. But really within the past 5 years or so, larger companies are starting to get into the solar game because the prices of the actual panels themselves and the structures associated with them
Right.
are plummeting. And so what they're actually finding is that they kind of have bifurcated the solar market into what they call a utility scale, and then kind of this residential rooftop solar.
Okay.
And so the residential rooftop solar is what you typically think of that goes on your roof. Simple enough. But the utility scale is really this fascinating and quick moving market where you are leasing land, usually from a farm owner. You're paying them quite well, and you develop just hundreds and thousands of panels in a specific spot on their land. And that drives down the cost of solar power drastically.
All right, now that what you just mentioned, those massive solar panel farms, but those things are also being, I guess, a parallel solar use of these giant mirrors that are steaming or heating steam.
That's right.
And then that steam runs, I hear, the whole city of Reno, I don't know, I just made that up, but isn't that another big deal? That is passive energy collection.
Yes, okay, so now you're getting into the different types of technology. So
But this is still solar.
this is
still using the sun, right?
still using the sun.
Yeah,
So
okay.
whenever you look and you see kind of the bluish or the blackish looking panels, that's something called photovoltaics or PV. And the way that works is the sunlight just hits the panel and it instantly turns it into a direct current type of electricity, and then it gets turned into an alternating current through what's called, it's a little box called an inverter. So that's a direct way to create electricity. The downside of this is if the sun's not hitting it, it's not going to generate any power.
It's an efficiency thing, right?
Right.
At maximum efficiency, you don't have any nighttime work.
That's right.
So does this automatically lead to a battery problem?
Well,
Or-
so let's go back to your original other technology here, the one where you're
Okay.
using mirrors and you're talking about boiling water and creating steam. So typical power plants, including coal, natural gas, and nuclear power, they are really just fancy ways of boiling water to create steam. And so what this other technology for solar power is, it's called concentrated solar power, or CSP. And what it does is there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but you can take thousands and thousands of mirrors and have them concentrate on a single boiler unit that may be, 150 feet up in the air. And as you concentrate all that solar power on that one location, that water superheats, it becomes critical, it boils. And you can actually, if you run it right, you can store a bit of that energy as well. And in some of the more advanced thought processes for these concentrated solar power units, they're even talking about superheating salt, creating molten salt that you can then store underground for several hours over the course of the night.
Sweet.
Yeah, and so you effectively melt the salt. The salt runs close to a heat exchanger, which then boils the water, and then that steam creates pressure, which then turns a turbine, collected to an electrode, that then creates your electricity.
Okay, well these things apparently have a degree of efficiency that is a higher degree of efficiency than the jet engines that LUS is using. Or is it more, is the cost per kilowatt lower or the same? What's the direct comparison between sophisticated mirror system? These things are not just old makeup mirrors thrown on the ground. They got to move with the sun. They've got to.
That's right. They track with the sun.
They probably cost $100 each or something.
They're very expensive. They do require a special film over the top of the panel. The efficiency of it degrades as it gets dirtier. And so you want a slippery surface, so things like dirt and pollen and bird poop and all that sort of stuff falls off. You do eventually have to clean them.
Is that applicable on your house?
It is applicable on my house, even with the photovoltaic energy system that I have. I do wash my panels off every once in a while, particularly around the springtime. But you talk about efficiency, and this is a really technical discussion that we can get into. And what do you mean by efficiency? Yes, that's right. So I'm warning you.
Just drink some coffee while you talk.
That's right. So the term efficiency can mean a number of things, but the bottom line is, what's the price? If it is more cost effective to do one thing over the other, does it really matter how many BTUs that you use in order to create a kilowatt hour of electricity? And really not quite. And whenever electric companies and users like myself and corporations buy renewable energy, they want to look at, okay, what is the bottom line? What's the price? When is this thing actually going to pay for itself? And that tends to be the better metric instead of how efficient are you capturing the sun, although that is a component of the price. And so,
bottom line.
So the bottom line, whenever you look at solar photovoltaic versus concentrated solar power, PV is actually much cheaper than the mirror system that they have, and it's actually a lot easier to install. So the mirror systems that you're talking about require vast amounts of land and access to water, whereas the PV systems, you can slap a single panel up on your roof and that's automatically helping. You want to have it a bit bigger because the economies of scale kick in, but it doesn't require water. You don't have to boil water to turn a turbine. When you do things like boil water, you are losing heat efficiency through that system. And then whenever you're pushing steam through a turbine, there's a efficiency loss in that kinetic to mechanical energy. And then when you go from that turbine spinning into electrical power, you are losing an efficiency. So each step in that process of boiling water, each step in that process of boiling water to generate electricity loses significant amounts of efficiency. There are some really great benefits to kind of a thermal solar unit where you're just using the direct sun to heat up your water, for instance, for your hot water tank. That is an exceptionally efficient, low-cost option, but you are not generating electricity doing that.
I want to talk about that system. This is an insert into going back to the general electricity from the panel on the roof. We'll come back to that part. I have a hot water heater. I have a hot tub, and I don't want to pay for it. I want to put something. What do I put where to generate the heat that heats those pools? For me, and I hear those are very efficient. They're old school. Technology lasts a long time. What am I doing?
That's right. So with a solar thermal panel or solar thermal unit, usually what you're doing is you're trying to capture the radiant heat from the sun as much as possible. And so the more efficient units nowadays have cylindrical tubes that are specifically designed to harness all the radiation from the sun as high a level as possible. and you are slowly pushing water or a glycol substance. It's kind of a kind of a sticky substance.
You like in water.
Yeah. And you're pushing that through these solar thermal units, and then that is then being kind of run through some coils through your typical hot water system. And so it's a bit more traditional, like your hot water tank already probably is, where you've got some sort of heating element stuck inside.
Got the gas down there.
Yeah, you just replace the heating element that you currently have with a brand new heating element that is the solar side of things. And they can be rather costly in order to do this. I was pricing them not too long ago, and they were running about $3,000 to $5,000. But there are tax credits associated with them that you can reduce the cost even more. And then also you're not using the electricity, you're not using the gas in order to heat up your water system. So they can pay for themselves over time. But right now the hottest the hottest market is PV.
All right, but this thing operates off of a panel that it's on my roof. Is it different? I mean, could I tell if I drove by your house that you're all electric or you're okay?
Yeah.
So they are different.
Yeah, you can tell even just by looking at them. Usually the PV systems are usually a bluish, and they have a lot of kind of a copper, or not copper, but a silvery looking metal lines running through them. Those are the conductors that help the electricity flow through. Whereas you compare it to a thermal unit, the thermal units tend to they look more like pipes. And they may even have kind of a larger collector unit on the top of it, and so they do look a little bit different. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you look it up online, you can see what they look like.
I'll go back to what I think of as solar then. That thing on the roof.
Yes.
I have my house is shaped like a barn, I guess the best way to put it, and I have roof facing in every direction, and I'm surrounded by trees.
Yes.
So I don't have enough total roof facing in any single direction. I have a quarter roof in every compass point, and I have some trees.
Right.
Am I screwed?
Yes. So.
Okay. Next question.
Well, I don't. The best thing to do is to invite a solar installer to come out and take a look at your house, and they'll tell you scientifically how much energy you could produce, where the best places to put things on your roof. But typically the best places are on a southerly facing roof. The more southerly facing, you get more energy output.
And that's true because we're in Louisiana.
Well, it's because we're in the northern hemisphere of the planet. So if we're on the southern hemisphere, if we're on the southern hemisphere, having a panel facing north, right. So generally southern, even a western facing panel is usually pretty good. Electric companies like western facing panels for a variety of reasons that we can go into later. But you kind of have come to this point where, I've got a lot of trees around my property. I don't maybe have a large roof space, or my roof space is too steep. If it's difficult for the solar installers to get up the roof, whatever the trouble may be, it doesn't work for everybody. And kind of the typical person that solar doesn't work for right now is a person living in an apartment. You don't own the roof.
Right, don't own the roof.
You have no real access to the electrical system of it. And so what do? Well, this is where policy starts to come in. We've already surpassed the technological problems, we've surpassed some of the financial problems, and now it's getting more to policy. And how can policy better enable and allow people that don't have the roof space, so to speak, benefit directly from solar? Well, there's this thing called virtual net metering and community solar policies where I may have a field in my backyard and all I do is mow it. I don't grow anything in it. It's of no economic use. But what I could do is I could build a fairly large solar facility, and I could go to individual people and I could say, look, Ed, how would you like to buy one of these panels? You give me $200 and I will designate this panel for you. And the policy that enables this to occur is the virtual portion of a net meter, where you would end up seeing the generation, that the power created from your panel on your electric bill.
Right.
Because in theory and in a bit of practice, it really doesn't matter where the solar units are whenever you're talking about a small city or something like that. And if it just so happens that they all tend to be in one spot, for a utility, it really doesn't matter all that much. There are some instances where it does matter, and not to push those aside. But when you're talking about virtual net metering and small scale solar and community solar units, there's an awful lot of opportunity there if you can just enable the policy.
Let's go straight to it then, and I'm not gonna ask you to name names yet, but I'm speculating here, strictly speculating, that in spite of what seems to be fairly logical conclusion, that we can do this thing, we can share the cost, people can benefit, people can contribute. We change the dynamics of electricity distribution for money. Pushback? Are you getting some pushback against that? If you say policy, somebody's going to say no.
That's right.
Who is saying no, and what is their, do they have reasoning? Why would a person say no?
Yeah, sure. Well, so, and this kind of goes to the fundamentals of how the electric market had been created in America and even across the world, where you tend to have one or a few number of very large electric companies that control a particular region, and so, or even down to a particular city. So here in Lafayette, our electric provider is Lafayette Utility System. You cannot go out on the open market and pick and choose what company you want for your electric company.
But I could have the Simon Mahan company.
You could, if the policy were to allow it.
The policy.
Because when these electric companies first got started, they needed to have some assurance that some other company wasn't going to come in, outcompete them, cause them to go bankrupt. They call them natural monopolies, where you don't have a lot of, it takes an awful lot of infrastructure costs to upgrade and to install. And so the government effectively will guarantee a monopoly for these particular companies to exist in an area and make it difficult to impossible for other companies to come in and try to compete. And so that's where you need a different type of policy that allows certain types of generators to come in. And so, the community solar field is not technically owned by the power company.
Correct.
It's owned by a private company. And so there is a little tension between the...
A little tension.
I thought I could slip that by, but yeah. There is tension between the incumbent electric companies that have the total capture of a market versus the smaller scale folks that want to get involved in electric generation.
And the Public Service Commission of Louisiana is theoretically the overseer of that policy.
Right. Yeah. So the Public Service Commission over in Baton Rouge, they are an elected 5-member board. They oversee many other things aside from electricity, but they predominantly, on the electric side, really only focus on what's called the investor-owned utility companies, or the IOUs. So that's the Entergys, that's the Clecos, that's the SWEPCOs up in Shreveport. But electric companies like we have here in Lafayette, the municipal utility, or a co-op like Slimco, the Public Service Commission has no oversight over.
No oversight.
And so the smaller electric companies, and this is fairly typical throughout the country, it's not unique just to Louisiana, but the smaller so-called municipal electric companies operate as a non-profit organization. They are not designed to make a profit for their shareholders. The people that own them, the city that owns them, the city governments that own them are the shareholders. And so they don't want to be, taking a profit off of their own local shareholders, whereas the investor-owned utilities do need to have a separate regulator, which is what the Public Service Commission is designed to do. So that ends up creating some different dynamics. If you are a Entergy customer, you can certainly speak and talk to Entergy about what it is that you want to do, but ultimately it's up to their Public Service Commission to determine what policies are allowed, whereas here in Lafayette we have a benefit that we can go talk to the City Council and we can go talk to the Mayor President about what it is that we'd like to see for our future.
Well, I'll ask you then. Yeah, you've talked to them, tried. Where is LUS on solar? Are they neutral? Are they taking an active adversarial role? Or what's the deal?
Yeah, well, if you recall last year, there was this time period where there was an awful lot of hubbub about solar here locally. What LUS and the council did was they passed some additional fees and some additional charges on top of solar panel users like my family would be, that would make it less economic to install solar.
Okay.
And
so they are, okay.
And so that happened. We did get it changed. A lot of folks here in the city and in the parish really like solar, and so punitive measures, or at least measures that appear punitive, are not positively looked upon by the public. And so that did change. People spoke out and said,
Okay, that's good. I didn't know it changed. I knew there was hubbub, but I thought we meaning the solar power side, lost.
No.
Good.
So everybody won. So
somebody listened, is
yeah,
what you're saying.
that's right.
Good for them.
Yeah, and
Good
so
for them.
that's a feather in the city's cap where we recognized that something happened, and then it got changed when we kind of all realized collectively what it was going to end up doing for not only the future but even existing solar power users. So people that had invested in solar panels 5 years ago, they were going to be hit with these punitive charges, including myself. And so that radically changes the economics of installing solar panels on your own roof with your own money in order to save your own energy.
Okay, I think this may be a slight diversion. Going back to the cost benefit, the efficiency. You have them in your home. The 15-year payback or something to that effect, and what happens in 15 years to these panels?
Sure.
They need to be replaced. When is it going to be affordable, and when's it going to be more affordable? What's the dealio? It's silicone on a panel.
That's right.
Why can't we make it cheaper?
It is becoming exceptionally cheaper. So I had my solar panels installed in 2012. At that time, we had a federal investment tax credit, an ITC of 30%. So whatever you pay, 30% is automatically paid back through your federal income taxes. You need to have enough income tax in order to pay it back. But also at the same time, the state legislature still had a 50% refundable tax credit. So there was in total an 80% cost reduction for the solar panels that you could purchase. So straight to the numbers here. In 2012, we had our 5 kilowatt panel system installed for $25,000.
And just 5 kilowatt a household size?
It's a little smaller. It's a little smaller. Okay. Folks may look more towards like a 7, 10, 12 kilowatt, but we were hyper vigilant with energy efficiency, and so we needed a smaller system. But so we spent $25,000. Of that, we received tax credits of $20,000 from the federal and the state at the same time. So total out of pocket was $5,000.
Man, I'm a little envious. Wish I was paying attention.
Well, and so that $5,000 we estimated at that time was going to pay for itself in about 8 years. Okay. But as electricity prices go up, your payback shortens. Sure. And so we're expecting about a 6 to 7 year payback right now, and we're in year about 4-ish, 5-ish. Okay. So we're very close to it paying for itself. The panels last for 30 years. 30 years. They typically have a 30-year warranty on them. And so if a panel breaks because of hail...
I was going to ask, how did Simon feel during the hailstorm?
Yeah, that's right. Perfectly fine. We've had a number of hailstorms in the past 5 years. You always take a look at the panels, and it looks fine. In fact, there was 1 year our panels were a little dirty from the pollen. The hail came through, and you could see where the hail individually hit on the panels because it cleaned the panels off.
Oh, good. So, good bad news.
That's right.
Good bad news.
And so, typically a 30-year lifespan, usually a 30-year warranty on these things. And then after 30 years, technology continues to improve.
Well, that's the big question. Predict the future when these things will be near throwaway price.
Right. Well, we're getting... Things are getting exceptionally good right now. So the state tax credit, the 50%, the good state tax credit, it was the best in the country, by the way. The legislature phased that out.
Sure.
And so, understandably so. In that time, since 2012 to 2017, prices have dropped by about 60%. So
60?
6T,
Wow.
Z60. So the 50% state tax credit went away, and the prices tumbled more than that in that amount of time anyway.
Right.
And
Okay.
so I just had a neighbor recently come over and show me a proposal for his house, and he could potentially get a 10 kilowatt system, twice the size of mine, for about $15,000.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so the merger of cost is coming down, the efficiency's going up.
that's right.
What is the future of the, and we only have about a minute to go. We can carry on in the next episode
Yeah,
if
sure.
you wish, but I lost track of my train of thought, which happens regularly on the Uncle Eddie Show. I think what we're going to do, since we've only got 30 seconds to go, we're going to pause in this episode of the Uncle Eddie Show and thank Simon for being here.
Thanks, Ed.
That's where you say thanks, Ed. And then we will be back in another episode, probably for about a week after this one, and we will pick up with another topic in just a minute.
Great.
But once again, this is Uncle Eddie. This has been the Uncle Eddie Show with my friend Simon Mahan, energy expert, in today's topic so far was solar. We'll be back to record another one, and you'll be back in a week to watch another one. Thanks for